Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so excited today to have a really interesting chat about perimenopause and menopause and emotions. And when we're talking about perimenopause and menopause, generally thinking about supplements or diet or exercise, but emotions are such a big part of what's happening in our life at any stage, but especially in this transition through perimenopause and menopause. So I'm thrilled to welcome Angela Lundy. Angela, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Marjorie.
It's my pleasure. I love speaking with you. And please tell us a little bit about yourself and why this topic is of interest to you.
Yeah, I'm just a lifelong learner and sharer, and I love to kind of flip the script on things that people kind of get down in the dumps about and figure out, like, how do we make the most of this life and have like a really full and beautiful life. And through that, it's brought me to, human design and all of the work I do with helping people find purpose. But I'm turning 40 this year, and my mom and my sisters and the people around me always force me to learn, right? If something's going on with somebody else or myself, I'm like, ooh, how do I learn more about this? How do I get more informed to help them? And so as I am entering perimenopause and starting to have some of these symptoms pop up, and just thinking ahead how I want the next phase of my life to be, this has been like a really huge topic for me. I've been, listening to all the podcasts and doing all the research and reading all the books. And a lot of times the information is very overwhelming. You have to go to this specialist and you have to get all of these tests and you have to do this and you have to buy $1,000 worth of supplements and the testing and it was just, my mom and I would listen to these and just go, oh, now I'm kind of overwhelmed and kind of depressed about it, right? We would have these conversations a lot. We'd like take a break. Oh, we're not listening to health podcasts anymore. We're not listening, and we kind of take a break and then we come back, and that's why I had you on my podcast, because I had this conversation with you and it was like not that conversation. It wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't, let's focus on all of the, things that you have to, all the testing and all this and all that. It was like, no, let's balance. Let's come back to balance. And since I've had that conversation with you, it was what, 5 months ago now or 4 months ago?
So 4 or 5 months, yeah.
Yeah. I've really dug deep into a more holistic approach to this. And so that's what's really fueling my fire for this right now is you kind of giving me that new way to look at it and looking at it in a new way. And I hope that that's how people can come away from this conversation, is more excited about aging and also really understanding why these things are happening and how balance and different things that they can do to really mitigate the symptoms and just be really have so much more enjoyable aging process.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I want to talk about a couple of things because many women don't realize that what they're going through in their late 30s or 40s are perimenopausal symptoms. And then a lot of women I speak with, they say, oh, I look back at the last 3 or 4 years and that's what that was. And that's what that was. So really honor you for getting ahead of this. And I just love that you and your mom are talking about this and together. And I also want to say that the information is overwhelming. It's been about 6 months since I Googled menopause help or relief, and there were 26 million hits. So basically, it could be a full-time job for you to try to figure this out on your own. And I don't want you to have to do that. Angie doesn't want you to have to do that. And you're right, like there's millions and there's dozens of tests that you can have. I'm not opposed to the testing for things, but that's generally where you're going to get information about replacing your hormones, which I'm also not against. But let's talk about how emotions and the hormones are connected.
I was introduced to just emotions in the body maybe 10 years ago. I was taking some spiritual psychology classes at the Edgar Cayce School of, it's a university, Atlantic University, and you have to learn all of the things, how to meditate, how to live in these ways, and the spiritual psychology of things. And Louise Hay has written so many books about the stored emotions and where they are in the body. And so I've known this, and every once in a while I have some shoulder pain or something, and I'll look it up and kind of do a little mantra and do a little work around that. Well, I didn't really think about it until we were really starting to dive into this topic about how these emotions are causing the menopause symptoms as well, right? And we can't say every single thing is caused by emotions, but it starts somewhere, right? It starts with a feeling, it starts with a thought, and that's how it gets into the body, right? And so we have so many, so many places to go from
We have
this.
so many places to go, and we are going to keep this brief. And Angela and I had to talk I think we did talk for 2 hours last time, not on on her podcast, which I can link underneath too if you would like to hear more. So we just talked about before we started recording about the liver, and the liver is one of our main ways that we detoxify and digest. So according to Yoga's Wellness Science, Ayurveda, which means science of life, we have these rhythms of the body, and we're digesting our food during the day and when we're awake. And then at night, when we're sleeping, we go to this deeper level of digestion, and that is food. And we are also processing emotions and thoughts. And that's why sleep is so important. And I'll just add this one thing, which is a little bit off topic, but if you have a heavy meal later at night, your body is not going to have the same level of repair and restoration. And that's why one of the reasons why women will say, well, I slept 8 hours, maybe I woke up once, but I feel so tired. So that's one of the reasons, because the liver doesn't get to do its job. So let's talk about how the liver is connected with emotions, in particular, anger. So could you explain that?
Yeah. So when we look at emotions and where they're stored, anger is stored in the liver. And so when we think about liver being, it also it moves through all of the excess hormones that we have in our body. And so if your liver is so busy having all of this anger built up inside of it in this dense way, it's not moving the toxins out through the body. It's also not moving the hormones out. And so it's having to come. What happens if your liver is not working? It comes out through the skin, right? So we might have these hot flashes, or we might have hormonal acne, or we might have toxins coming out through the skin. So if you're finding that you have eczema, if you have hormonal acne, if you have hot flashes, it's probably your liver can't do its job because of these stored emotions. And so what we were talking about, Marjorie, is not only can we look at anger like, oh, I'm angry at you, or I'm angry at you, you're maybe angry at life too, like the aging process, where you're at in your life, what the next 40 years looks like. There's so many things that come up at this time, at this age for women. And so really figuring out how to process that. And one really cool thing is your hands contain all of these neurons, and where your hands go, your energy goes. And so placing your hands on your liver and saying, I'm sorry, or I forgive you, or something along those lines is such a healing thing that you could do to kind of be with the body. The body is never against you. It's always for you. It's always here for you. So the more that you can love it, the more that you can, give energy to it.
That is so great. And one of the words we talked about is curiosity. And for the women that I speak with and I work with, they are angry. They're angry at their bodies. They feel like their body is betraying them. Where are these night sweats coming from? Why can't I sleep? What is this weight that I'm gaining or that won't come off? Why? And it's like this fight against their body, and your body doesn't want to fight. That's one of the principles of Ayurveda. Your natural state is one of ease. So anything else is out of balance. So we have these messages, and one of my pillars is listen to your body's messages. Now, for a lot of us, we weren't taught that. So this is something to learn. And if it seems a little different for you to put your hands on your body and say, thank you think about it, like this is our house. This is our house that we live in 24/7. You will not get another one in this lifetime. This is it. So making it a priority to take care of yourself and maybe looking at different ways and that you haven't before. So for anyone who's doing this right now, let's do it. And you'll talk us through where the liver is, and we'll do it for a few seconds.
Yeah, so rubbing your hands together like Marjorie is always be doing is kind of activating all of the, all of the energy in the hands. And then we can go, and we're just going to go the right side of your body, just kind of below the breast, in the rib cage, kind of, let's see. So it kind of wraps just a little bit. So we're going to go underneath, and we're just going to place our hands right there below the bra line, above the belly button, to the right side, and just breathe in. And you could even kind of pull light through the top of your head, through the earth. There's always light available to us. Light is just such a beautiful thing to bring into the body, a lightness, a calm. And so I always pull light through the top of my head, up through my core, into whatever area. And then I just sit there for a minute. Is it tender? Do you feel any tenderness there? If it's tender, maybe there's some stored emotions in there, that maybe there's a little stagnant energy. And then let's think about, do you have any feelings in there? Can you connect to any feelings or anything going on in there? And just taking a moment. It's so happy right now that you're even paying attention to it. Our organs actually do have feelings in a way, right? Like, we know when our stomach gets upset, right? Like we know what that feels like. Our liver and our kidneys and our heart, they also have energy around them that contains feelings. And so it just wants say, tell it you're doing a good job. Thank you. So that's kind of a way to connect in, and it might feel kind of silly at first, but connecting to your body, it's really interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they had taken this quiz on all the different things that might be going on in the body, and they didn't even realize their ankles were swollen until they checked the box, right? Like they looked down and they were like, oh, my ankles are swollen. It's like we're so disconnected from our bodies. And the more that we can bring in just some intention and more thoughtfulness and curiosity, like you said, as to what is in there, what is going on. That's just one thing that I'm working on every single day, is
Yeah.
connecting to what emotions and where is it tender and what's going on in my body.
Thank you so much for talking us through all of that. And as we were doing that, I was just getting this idea of like, when we look in the mirror and we don't like the way we look, sometimes we'll even be like, I hate you. We say things to ourselves that we would never say to somebody else. And like, if you're saying that out loud, what that's doing to your psyche, but also what you're doing to your body. So if we're constantly fighting the body, I look at the scale with my clients just to get a baseline, just to get an idea. It's not about the number, but because we cannot force our body to be a certain weight. We just can't. We can take care of ourselves, we can do all the things, but we can't force it to get to a certain number unless we're taking very unhealthy, extreme measures. So I just want to say that about, and this is so much a part of it, is about loving ourselves, because if we feel like all the changes that we're going through, that the body's against us, that's going to make everything harder. every part of our life, it's going to be harder if we feel like it's a fight every time we get dressed, or every time we look in the mirror, or every time we're hiding our body when we have our clothes off or whatever. So it's a really interesting point. And I've brought this up before, you guys, but the cultural differences in perimenopause and menopause. And we talked about this in the past, but in the Western culture right now, elders are not revered. It's like they're going to live different places. They're usually not living with their families anymore. We're not learning all of their wisdom, unfortunately. And that's a huge loss. I mean, people have been living 80, 90 years. They have so much wisdom. I was fortunate to have my dad for 96 years. And I learned so much about the 20s and the Depression, and he was in World War II, and, all of these things and all this history and all this wisdom about having a family. And when we're not looking at ourselves and this wisdom that we gain every day and how much we have to share, that's really unfortunate. And so I also want to have a menopausal movement where we're embracing all of that and the knowledge that we have. And you talked about what is our genius?
Yeah, this is where I'm actually shifting my focus, is women that are maybe 40 plus, really finding themselves. That's what this is supposed to be, right? We went out and we conquered and we did, and maybe career, maybe children, maybe you're still on the tail end of that, but we went out and we kind of conquered, and now it's time to kind of go within and learn the lessons through this vessel that we've seen, right? We've seen as women. And now let's take our genius. What is our genius? And bring it forward. And that's going to bring so much wisdom, so much knowledge, so much, even showing the world how needed we are. The older we get, the better we are. The more knowledge we have, the more wisdom we have. A lot of women I've been talking to, they have these teenage daughters that are just, oh, the world, and it's like thinking back, yeah, you came in and you got all of this, that was the worst thing ever. That was terrible. And you see it over and over and over through time. And you're like, ooh, what was really important? What is really important? What do I want to teach people about what's important, or the wisdom that I've carried through this life? And we all have a genius. We all do. Maybe it's baking sourdough bread, or maybe it's, it can be anything. Maybe it's quilting. I want the fabulous quilters to be revered as genius, right? I want these people, these women, to step into their genius, to show up with their worth, and to do things that really bring them joy, because it's your turn. You did all the trying and forcing and all of that. I was watching the Fabulous Five Queer Eye the other day. They came out with the new season, and those men are so comfortable in their bodies. Jonathan he wears a dress with his beard, and and I'm just like, they bring so much joy and change people's lives because they feel so comfortable with themselves. That's what women 40 plus should be showing the world. That's what they should be showing. I feel so comfortable, even if I have a roll, even if I have some wrinkles, this is not making me less than. I can accept and love myself, so you can, right?
Yeah, exactly. I want to get back to Fabulous Five in a second, but what you said about the acceptance is a great step. But if women are still having the hot flashes, not sleeping, and so exhausted, it's really hard to find your genius, discover your genius, write a book, work in your garden. Some women have told me they want to start businesses, or they want to volunteer more, but they're just too tired. So, we're talking about the body and being healthy, being in a healthy weight, and what that means for everyone is a little bit different. But to be healthy and to feel good so that you can do those things. And it's really, we can accept our body, but if we're still not feeling like ourselves, like we had the energy we used to, finding our genius is going to be hard. So in terms of the hot flashes, when we are storing, when our liver is not detoxifying, our hormones are stored, everything's out of balance, and then we're going to have more hot flashes and night sweats. And the liver is digesting more deeply overnight and with specific hours that you may be waking up. And that is unexpressed anger. And it's so interesting. And I'm talking a lot about Ayurveda today. I keep it very simple, but fire. We all have fire in our bodies. We have the fire of digestion. We need heat. We're 98 degrees. Nothing's going to work if our body's cold, and the fire in our mind and our emotions. So when we are too fiery, when there's too much heat because we're not detoxifying, that's going to show up as these hot flushes. They call them that in the UK and in Australia, hot flushes, which I love because it's like a flush. It's not a flash, or sometimes it's like a second. And these debilitating night sweats, women are waking up, throwing off the covers, then they're cold, they're sweaty, they have to change their clothes, they have to even put a towel down because their sheets are so wet. So this is a sign that the body is out of balance. And yes, there's hormonal changes, so we can look at those and we can replace them if that's what you choose to do, but without changing our lifestyle and how we feel about ourselves, that's only going to help so much. It's just a little piece of it. And why are the hormones going out of balance? Of course, our bodies are changing, estrogen, progesterone, but a lot of that has to do with these imbalances that we're talking about. So what other symptoms in perimenopause and menopause are related to emotions? We're talking about hips. So let's touch on that. We talked a lot about that.
Yeah. So another thing that I have noticed, a lot of women have a lot of hip pain, and it can be other places. It can be back, it can be hip, but usually hips are being afraid to move forward, being afraid to take that next step. And so the hips, they are the first thing that kind of pushes out to move forward. And it was so funny. My mom has been wanting to retire forever, and she had this awful hip pain all the time. And she just kept talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. And she finally made a decision as to when she was going to retire. Just set a date. I'm not going to worry about it. Hip pain's gone. I'm like, She's like, I think that oil I've been taking must be. I'm like, no, it literally stopped when you stopped worrying about retirement. When you said, this is the date.
It's so fascinating, isn't it? And in the traditional way, somebody would go to the doctor, there would be something wrong, there would be painkillers, there would be shots, maybe even talks of surgery. And when we look at this in a different way, from a different lens, we hear stories about that. It's amazing. And the hip situation, women are feeling more aches and pains. And that also is a result of not detoxifying properly. And the excess heat is this stored anger, and the heat has to come out some way. I think I didn't finish my loop. The heat has to come out some way with the sweating or the hot flush or the night sweats. And until we address that underneath and how the hormones can detoxify, that heat is going to have to get out in some way. And it's debilitating, and it doesn't have to be this way. And for example, if you go, and I just want to say, I am not discouraging anyone. I am not a doctor about the HRT. If you choose to do that, great. And if you're just doing that and not changing anything in your lifestyle, it's going to help, but it's not going to help the underlying reasons and helping you live a happier life and a healthier life.
Are you really one way to feel your emotions that my mom and I have been playing with is I had a practitioner on that talked about how water is so good with emotions. So obviously hot baths, but even just heating up hot water in the evening and drinking that while you kind of feel your emotions. And he talked about journaling. Drink your cup of hot water, because that's my thing. well, I don't want tea this late. I don't want this. Oh, you know, I could drink hot water, right? Like anybody has access to hot water. So warming up a cup of water, flushing that through the body so that I can feel my emotions. So my emotions are moving, and journaling in the evening, getting rid of some of that before I go to bed, so I'm kind of pre-processing some of the
Yeah.
day before I lay down. And then all of a sudden my body's finally like, okay, now I have time to process you.
Exactly. And hot water is huge in the science of life. And we start the day with hot water to get rid of the waste from the day before. But when we drink and hot water is just easier to digest, it doesn't put out our digestive fire, which is fire that we need. And when we drink it at night, it's helping us to rehydrate so that the body can also release the hormones and have the hydration in order to do that. So I'm all on board. So Angela, Angie, to wrap up, please tell us, one thing that you could help. I mean, that was great about the water and the journaling. But one thing that women can use in order to think about this idea of what is our genius.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think that you got to start somewhere, right? Sometimes it's too overwhelming, especially if you're like I was, and I gave and gave and gave and gave to everybody else around me, and I didn't have much room for myself. I started really small by finding a song that I liked, because I was listening to the music that was on the radio or that my kids liked, or that I wasn't even choosing the music I liked, right? It was just, it's like start somewhere. And then I started letting my family eat, maybe like a frozen pizza, a little better version of a frozen pizza, but a frozen pizza. And I made myself something that was really nourishing that I wanted to eat. Because how many times are we just feeding everybody around us and not eating what we want? Right. And so I just kept picking little things that were like giving to myself. They talk about maybe kind of dating yourself, kind of just giving to myself and allowing my true self to come through in little ways. And it was like the more that I did this, the more I was kind of open to more and more and more. And then, now I do human design readings and astrology readings to give you your genius. If you're like, okay, I've done this, now I'm not sure, you can always come to me. I will talk this through with you. But just those little things to just like, what lights me up? What excites me? Like, how often do we even ask this? Right. And I
Yeah.
know, I was thinking about even depression, is anger that we don't feel we have a right to feel. And it's like, you have a right to feel angry. You have a right to feel any emotion, but feel it and let it go, right? Like, don't hold on to it.
There's a whole book called Letting Go, actually, that talks about feeling the emotions. And I just love the little things that you started with. I do call it being strategically selfish, but think about what a better version of you as a mom is showing up when you get to eat the nourishing meal that you want. And think about the better version of their mom that just by listening to one song that you want to. And for a lot of women, they feel they have to make this huge change. Well, I have to go out for an hour and exercise. And I'm all about little changes because those few minutes, several times a day, multiple times a day, the small changes make a huge, huge difference. So Angie, where can women reach you if they are interested in finding their genius and through this human design work?
Yeah, my website is evolvingonpurpose.org. You can go there. I also have a podcast, Evolving on Purpose, that you were on. So you can kind of check that out a little bit more. But yeah, I'm just finding more and more ways to try to support, especially women, because I just feel like it's so interesting. I've done human design readings for men, and a lot of times they're living their design a lot better, right? Like they're okay with saying, yeah, this is who I am. And I want every woman to feel as able to say, this is who I am. This is who, like, this is me showing up fully. And so, yeah.
Fascinating. That is so fascinating. And, it's a reflection of our society. And we're looking to change, Angie and I are looking to change that. If you are struggling, if you are suffering, it is not inevitable. You can thrive through perimenopause and menopause. You can discover your zone of genius, and the best years can be in front of you. So thank you, Angie, for joining me. I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Please post your comments. Please post, and I will be sure to answer. And if there's anything else you want to hear about on these lives, please let us know. Angie and I can meet other women, and I can talk again and help you to get the best information. Talk to you
Yes.
soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.